Hey guys, hey, it's Vince and Drew with Power 5 Fanatics, and we're coming at you going our first video of the week after week 4, heading into week 5. It's hard to believe we've already been doing this for about a month now.
Man, football comes and goes quick, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You gotta enjoy it while it's here. 'Cause it's
Yeah,
already halfway
soak it
through.
in. Well, that's what we're here to help you do, and we're going to do our video today, our week, I guess it'd be
Week
our
five,
week 5
top
25, yeah.
As we see it,
Right.
we have a different opinion, but
Yeah, and the top 6, most
most people are probably gonna agree on the
most
who are the top teams.
most experts are going to agree on the top 16. They may be a little bit different order,
Right.
but I think the way we have it, I think a lot of people might agree with. Of course, we got Clemson won, no surprise there. They had a big win this past weekend, beating Charlotte 52-10.
Right.
And then, of course, coming into, and we actually had to debate on this one a little bit.
It's hard to find the right order for these top six teams.
I mean, most people are going to agree with this right here, but we actually had a little bit. We were a discussion of moving.
Who's deserving? Because this time of year, you really start taking out the preseason, theories on who's going to be good, and you actually start looking at resume.
Right.
And Clemson's win against A&M at the time looked really good. And now it's starting to not look as good, but they're still number one. And then Alabama, they haven't really played anyone yet. And then some of these other big-time teams have played some good teams. So
Alabama beat Southern Miss 49-7.
Right.
But we almost thought about moving LSU into the 3 spot. But I think one thing that kept us from doing it is, they won big against Vanderbilt. It was on the road, so it really was a big win, conference win. But they gave up 38 points. Now, I haven't looked at deep into that game. There might have been a return touchdown somewhere there to pad up the points a little bit, but still that's a little bit disturbing, at least the way I look at it. 66-38, it's still a big win, but it's just that I think that's enough to keep them in the 3rd spot behind Alabama as far as we're concerned. Staying at the 4 spot, I should say, is Georgia. They absolutely did nothing to keep them other than moving up, but we just think the top 3 are really at this point are better, even though Georgia did have that great win against Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame, maybe everybody...
a little bit better than we thought.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people in 23-17 win, that was a big deal for Georgia. They got it behind them, and now they can move on to the SEC.
Right.
Again, these top 5, or top 6, they're just very tough, all these teams.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State, in my opinion, maybe one of the, if you want to call them a surprise, they're never a surprise, but they're better than I thought they were going to be.
Yeah, this Ohio State team is scary good. It looks,
Yeah.
we'll have to see.
It's hard to keep them out of the top 4, honestly.
It really is, but they haven't played anyone yet. And they're going to have an opportunity this week to play a pretty good team in Nebraska. But their offense and their defense too has just looked almost unstoppable. I know first week against FAU they started off real fast, and then they didn't. They actually got outscored by FAU the rest of the game. But these past, what has it been, 3 games since then?
Yeah.
They've just absolutely dominated. So they're really impressive to me.
Not playing anybody. That you have to take that into consideration. But I kind of look at this in college football and also in the NFL. Even if you don't play anybody, but if you beat them down the way you're supposed to beat them, to me that's the same as playing Notre Dame 23-17 like Georgia did.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to struggle with those bad teams. You
want
to beat them.
That was
down
the whole deal with Vanderbilt
and
LSU. There's a little, they still beat them bad, but you got to look at Ohio State. They beat Miami of Ohio 76-5. I mean, what kind of score is that, anyways?
Yeah.
It's like, it's like a mixture of a baseball score and a basketball score.
Yeah.
But it's just ridiculous how good they look.
Yeah, Justin Fields had 6 touchdowns in the 2nd quarter of that game.
Yeah.
He's just unreal. That's never happened at Ohio State, so that was a very impressive.
Yeah, it's funny about how some of these quarterbacks, and they have these great days, whether it's Jalen Hurts or Fields or Burrow, any of these, Ellinger, and it's like it's never been done before, which amazes me sometimes. But a lot of that
happening a lot this season. It seems like
a lot of it was just more passing. It seemed like every year.
Yeah, football's changing, people. So.
6. We got Wisconsin. I mean, we moved them above Oklahoma.
We moved them up a lot this week.
And when I said that the top 6, actually ours is different. I'm wrong there because most people would still have Oklahoma at 6. I would say most people, but I'm sorry. They're just their defense. What have they given up? 14 points this year.
Yeah, 14 points this year, and through the first.
And that game was over with in the. I mean, by halftime it was pretty much.
Well, yeah, it was 28-0 at halftime, which, by the way, is the worst Michigan has ever gone to half losing ever. They've never been down 28-0.
I mean, how many games have they played?
Wisconsin
1,000 games.
Well, they have almost 1,000 wins.
Yeah, so more like 1,500 games, or however many games they played.
They've never been down 28-0 going into half. Wisconsin is on a,
historically
they're one
good
of those
season.
teams that can really kind of, go up this chart pretty quick.
We'll see how this thing goes, but right now they're kind of a wild card, I would say, because sure, a lot of people want to see more, because they're almost too good to be true. But we felt it was good enough to move them in front of Oklahoma, who we have at 7. So Oklahoma being the first team to get up here and barely got in the top 10 from the Big 12.
Right.
So it kind of tells you the Big 12 is kind of
taking a step back.
It's kind of condensed a little bit. It's still very strong, but the teams on the higher side are maybe not looking quite as good as they were, even though that's saying a lot because Oklahoma still looks great.
Maybe we're underestimating Oklahoma because
we're going to find out.
They haven't played anyone either.
They play Tech this weekend. It's a noon Eastern game.
Yeah.
And so that's their first Big 12 game of the year. I know Tech's we're still not sure exactly what kind of team Texas Tech is, but we might have a little bit better gauge than Oklahoma, beating up on UCLA last week.
That win looks a little bit better.
Yeah, it looks
now,
a little bit better now.
But still not a great opponent there.
At 8, we got another SEC team. And Auburn's another team that, they've really surprised me because – I tell you, they look really quick. I mean, like the team speed they have, beating A&M the way they did. It looked like their athletes were better than the Aggies.
Yeah, I have to agree. And when you're talking about resume, this team has got probably one of the best resumes to this point. They've already beaten Oregon, and we don't know what the Aggies are yet. But going into that game, that was a top 15 matchup, or maybe top 20 in certain polls. But it was on the road, and if you watch the game, I know the score wasn't super indicative on that game, but Auburn really had this game under control when they went up 14 to 3. I mean, this game was, you could just, of course, the Aggies ended up scoring 14 points or more than 14 points, but you could just kind of see Auburn kind of controlled this game pretty early in this game, and they have been impressive to me because they've got a great resume to this point.
Yeah, part of that too is I think A&M is just their offense has been not good. I mean, they went basically the last 3 quarters against Clemson and Auburn, and hardly moving the ball, hardly scoring anything.
Yeah,
and it's really affecting them just from the standpoint that they have probably the hardest schedule in the nation, and these games like this that they have chances to win, and their offense is just going to sputter like that. It's not going to be.
It's hard to win these types of games when you got a schedule like that. I mean,
yeah, but they're not getting any help from their offense at all.
No.
It's like it's not looking good.
Yeah.
Next we got Texas, and they had a big win against Oklahoma State. I don't know why Oklahoma State always gives them fits, but they do. And they won. It was just, they were like, whew, glad that's over with. They got that knocked out because that really actually looks pretty good on their resume because I think Oklahoma State, in my opinion, probably is maybe the third best team in the Big 12. So that's a pretty big win for them. And I'm not sure. I think we kept them pretty much the same as last week.
I
they
think
might
we
have been
moved them down one spot.
Oh, we did? Okay.
Auburn kind of jumped them. Not that they're that much worse of a team, but just Auburn has gotten more on the resume, and I think that they are more deserving to be in that 8 spot.
We got Notre Dame next, and if you would have told me that Notre Dame was going to lose this weekend, I sure would not think they would still be in the top 10, but we think they are because they really surprised me. I mean, they hung in there. That's a tough place to play. It's an SEC team on the road. I mean, it is what it is, but they lost by 6 points, so they're better than I thought they were.
Yeah.
So we definitely think they belong in the top 10. Moving to number 11, we got Florida. They're surprising me more every week because they're showing me more their toughness. Their defense really seems to be for real.
Right.
Tennessee, what was it? They scored 3 points against Florida. I know Tennessee's not a whole lot, but their defense is just looking real good. They started the year off pretty strong against Miami, and maybe didn't look as good.
And they've beaten Tennessee now, which Tennessee isn't a great team.
So they're another one. They're kind of like Notre Dame. They're better than I thought. There's 3 teams right now that are really looking better than I thought they were going to be. Well, I would say Wisconsin definitely, and then Notre Dame maybe, and then Florida.
Right. Florida, the other thing too is the fact that they've had to bring in, Felipe Franks was their starter coming into the season, and they've lost him.
Yeah.
And they're able to kind of keep this thing rolling with some of these backup guys.
Yeah, the new kid, can't remember his name.
Kyle Trask, I think.
Yeah. And he hardly even played in high school. I mean, he was a backup, and I can't remember who he's behind. I'm assuming it was some kid who's probably playing Division I ball somewhere, but he hadn't started a game in like 3 years or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah.
And so the guys just kind of hung in there. He had enough talent. They thought they could keep him, and then it turns out he started a game and he played excellent.
Right.
Next we got Penn State. Of course, they were off this last week. And they kind of hung in this spot, somewhere right at the low teens, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
And they've given them no reason to move them up or move them down. That's just kind of been where they've been the entire year, pretty much. I'm not sure who they play this week. We're going to do our pick'em deal against the spread. We'll be having that video here in the next couple days. So, but we'll see who they're playing because I'm sure they're going to be on our pick'em deal.
Yeah, Penn State, they struggle with a Pitt. And
that one's looking
2 weeks
better.
ago. But now that Pitt has beaten UCF, that's not a quality. That's a pretty. What I'm trying to say is that's a pretty quality win. I guess
it is, and
they probably should have won by more of a margin.
It looks better than it did.
But
it looks a lot better.
But we can now see that Pitt may not be such a bad team.
No.
So,
next we got, I guess our first Pac-12 team, Oregon.
Right.
At 13, and they pretty much destroyed Stanford 21-6. So, everybody kind of thought a lot of people were picking them at the beginning of the year. It was either going to be them, Utah, or Washington winning that. And right now, it's starting to look more like anything can happen, but it looks like Washington, and Oregon may be pulling ahead
maybe
a little bit.
USC too.
USC, and then Utah's not out of it, but. I'm just saying as far as momentum and how their programs are looking, Oregon and Washington are definitely looking the best because that loss Washington had to Cal is
starting to look a little better.
Let's talk about Cal 1 second. You got to include them too. They're 4-0 and everybody forgets about them. But in fact, they're coming up here in just a couple more spots. At 14 though, ahead of them, we got Iowa, who was off, but. They're kind of like Penn State. They've been hanging in there in the low teens, especially after they beat Iowa State. And so we'll see what happens this week with them. 15, we do have Cal, and they're kind of the sleeper team over here. Nobody's paying attention to them, but all they do is go out and win, and they're 4-0, and they've really got some pretty quality wins.
Solid wins.
The at Washington was a big one.
At Ole Miss, I know Ole Miss isn't good, but going on the road.
Yeah, going and winning 28-20.
That's 3 time zones.
Yeah.
Their time when that game was played at 11 o'clock or whatever, it was like 8 in the morning on their time.
And it doesn't really matter if you're playing a Power 5 team on the road, and it's a team it's a team you don't normally play anyways. Mm-hmm. Any win like that's a big win.
Right.
We're kind of hanging in here in the Pac-12 because here comes Washington. So right now, it's hard to tell with this conference, but just momentum-wise, it looks like it's Washington, Oregon, and Cal at this point. But it could still change. There's so many more games to play, but it's these teams are just condensed in there. I mean, you still even have teams like Arizona State. Arizona, I mean, you could even say them too, even though they've looked really iffy at times. But it's just Colorado, it's another one. And so there's no telling what's going to happen with the Pac-12. It's just that's kind of how that whole conference has turned out. But Washington looking strong again, 45-19 win against BYU.
Yep, big win.
And we're going to hang in here with the Wolverines. I don't see how in the world you can move them out after one terrible game, but they're on their way. They're back. They're going backwards. Another week like that, and they won't be in our top 25 anymore. I just don't know what to say about Michigan.
This has got to be the week that Michigan gets their offense figured out against Rutgers.
Yeah, I don't even know if Shea Patterson's playing because he got hurt, and not that I don't even know if it matters at this point because it doesn't seem like they can do anything with anybody. But what was really disheartening for Wolverine fans was the defense. It had to be.
Right.
I mean, they had so many opportunities to slow that steamroll down that was going on in the first half, and they just couldn't make the plays, and they looked slow. And
they didn't look motivated. They looked uninspired to be there, which is crazy. It was on the road, and
no joke.
Wisconsin, I think, Michigan beat them last year, but Wisconsin's kind of had their number.
No joke.
So
they've had a lot of people's numbers lately.
Yeah.
And UCF, one of our group of 5 teams. Wait, I'm sorry. It was USC, excuse me. Not UCF. USC, my bad.
Another Pac-12 team. This is my surprise team so far. When you're talking about backup quarterbacks, this team, we thought we had Slovis, come in and he played great in that first game against Stanford, and then he gets hurt, and now they're on their third string quarterback and they're still winning games against pretty good teams.
It seems like Helton is just doing everything he can, and he's just like taping it up and gluing it together however he has to. But I got to give them credit. I got to give him credit because it'd be real easy at this point. The athletic director's gone who hired you, and it's just everybody keeps talking over and over about Urban Meyer is going to be the new coach and all that, and that they've held it together and they're getting big wins and beating. Who was it they beat on the road? I'm trying to remember who it was. It was
Utah.
No, it was Utah. That's right. And that was it's a big win with a third string quarterback.
Huge win.
19, we got Boise. Our first group of 5 team. They beat Air Force 30-19. And they're just kind of hanging in there. I mean, it's like you ride them off, and they just keep getting it done every week. Boise State, and they're doing it with a freshman quarterback.
They have some great skill position.
And we had Boise State ahead of UCF. UCF losing to Pitt. We dropped them a pretty good chunk there, but it wasn't a terrible loss for them because. Pitt. I mean, it's not like they just gave up, and they did what they could try to make that happen, but they just couldn't. And it was on the road.
Yeah, UCF. I mean, they did a great job to get back in this game against Pitt. They were down like 18-0 at one point, and then they end up almost coming back and winning the game. But Pitt just really had it. I mean, they played a great game, and it's
their quarterback. UCF's quarterback, the freshman. He had a little rougher week. I wish I could remember his name, but he threw a couple interceptions as opposed to the week before against Stanford when it was just a great game. He didn't have any turnovers or anything, but it was just a tough loss for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's sadly for UCF, you got to win these types of games if you want to get the respect that you think you deserve after winning so many games and having so many good seasons over the past couple of years. That's a game they should have won. I mean, flat out they should have won that game.
I really
So it's
thought they would.
It is disappointing for them that they weren't able to get it done.
We got Wake Forest at 21, and I think they're the second ACC team to show up. Is that right? I believe so.
Clemson.
Yeah, Clint. Well, I was saying they're second. That's pretty sad though. And the second ACC team is at 21. Of course, last week there was only 2, and I think it was Virginia at 25.
Right.
But anyways, Wake Forest did look very strong against Elon, 49-7. I know the who they're playing, and you got to take all that into consideration, the talent level they're playing. But still, it was a big win for them.
Yeah, and winning's got to mean something at some point. I mean, they've beaten North Carolina and some other pretty good teams. They're 4-0, so at this point in the season, we all got to start taking a look.
Yeah, we moved them into the top 25. 22, we got Kansas State, who was off this last week, and I don't know who they're playing this week. I'm trying to
I think they play Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State, that's right.
Yeah.
So we're going to know a whole lot more about them after this week. Their defense has just looked so good this year.
They just look like they're disciplined.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not the most athletic team, but they look strong. They just look sound. I don't know how to explain it. They just look good.
Well, going into this last weekend, I thought TCU had the best defense in the Big 12, which I don't agree with that now, obviously, after TCU gets shelled by SMU.
Right.
But I got to say Kansas State's the best defense in the Big 12. And I know a lot of people are saying, well, big deal, that doesn't mean anything. But this year it actually does mean more because we're starting to see some better defenses. Oklahoma's looking good. Tech's looking pretty decent compared to what they normally are. UT's hanging in there at some spots. I think Kansas State's probably the best defense in the Big 12.
Well, and I think this game coming up this weekend against Oklahoma State's just going to be a good game to watch because it's going to really help solidify that middle group of the Big 12.
Definitely.
Who's the third and who's the fourth team? Well, this will kind of help solidify that.
23, we got Utah. This is where we dropped them after their loss to USC. Again, it's not the end of the road for them, but they got some work to do, and mainly because there's so much competition in the Pac-12.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody's going to get out of there with less than 2 losses.
I don't think the Pac-12 gets enough credit for how deep it is,
Yeah.
and I think partly because they don't have that one elite team.
Right.
They don't have that one team that can go to Ohio State and win a game or go to the playoffs even. But they've got a lot of these really solid middle teams and they just beat up on each other.
Yeah.
And
that's why I don't think there's going to be a playoff representative because, again, I think 2 losses is going to win that
I think right now
conference.
You still got to maybe say Oregon has a chance because their only losses to
Auburn, and it's looking better right now. I just don't think they can go through it undefeated. I don't.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I don't either. Everyone's becoming an Oregon fan, I guess, in the Pac-12.
I'm running out of room here, but I got SMU. We have them at 24. And the Ponies, this is the best start they've had since 1984.
Right.
Their quarterback,
Shane Buechele.
Yeah, Buechele, the UT transfer. They're looking really good. That's Sonny Dykes' team. And, I don't know. Can they go undefeated?
I'll be honest with you. That win over TCU shocked me.
Yeah.
I
knew they were good.
I knew they were good too.
But I thought TCU would really slow them down, and they couldn't do it.
Yeah. That was a huge win for them. And, of course, it's the skillet, the iron skillet.
Yeah. Which is a strange
rivalry
thing to play for, but, I like to eat, so I guess that it could be
You could
good.
just tell it meant more to them
than
it did to TCU, and they found a way to win the game. So, it was a great, great win for them, and they're undefeated. So
we got the Buffaloes down here rounding out the top 25. Again, another Pac-12 school beating Arizona State. I believe is on the road to 34-31.
Right.
And, they're hanging in there. They beat Nebraska. They've beaten Arizona State. So their resume is really starting to look better all the time. I know they do have one loss.
Lost to Air Force.
Yeah, Air Force.
But
we believe they belong in the top 25. There were some other schools, of course, that we had to debate. Were they ready to get in the top 25, or maybe they dropped out? Of course, there's a few of them that dropped out,
Well, yeah. Here's some of the teams we had considered putting here: Oklahoma State, Missouri, A&M. They had just got off a loss to Auburn.
Washington State dropped out.
Washington State. Nebraska's kind of in there. App State after their big win against North Carolina. Michigan State's kind of still in there.
I think, is really starting to play their way back into it. Their offense looked a lot better.
Haven't beat Northwestern, and I know Northwestern hasn't looked great.
And they look better. Their offense,
right? Memphis, they're still undefeated.
Yeah, they're undefeated.
Mississippi State, they lost a couple weeks ago to Kansas State, but they got a good opportunity this week against Auburn to try to get back into that conversation. Army, and then Virginia, and
a 2-loss team, A&M. I think you got to kind of keep them on the outside here because
what's their schedule?
I know it's their schedule, and they even with 2 losses early this year, you knew it was going to be tough, and they tried to make a go at it, but they've had a tough time.
Yeah.
Well, guys, hey, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, because we're going to have some more videos here in the next couple days. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.